Good morning, Home Church. Hey, we are so excited to have you here with us this morning in person and online. For those of you who don't know us, my name is Chris, and this is my wonderful wife, Sheena. And we are blasting into week 3 of our series called Preventative Maintenance. Now, if you've been here in the last couple of weeks, maybe the first week you were like, you went home and you did some maintenance on your car or some appliances. Maybe you did some maintenance on your AC unit. Or if you were here last week, we heard about preventative maintenance when it comes to money. Maybe you went home and you started a budget, or you looked at your motives behind spending or something like that.
Okay. Before we get too deep in this, I feel like sometimes we learn best by our mistakes. You know, is there anybody out there who kind of tends to learn things the hard way sometimes? Okay, good. I'm in good company. So just a few real life examples from the Harper house. How many of you guys have been nervous because your spouse may or may not nag you if your car has low fuel? Yeah, there's a few in the room. So anytime Chris is like, I'm going to take your car, I have this moment where I'm like, I'm on E again. How does this always happen? I don't understand it. So there's always that. And he's like, it's bad on your fuel pump, blah, blah, blah. I'm like, it's been going fine, okay? I've been down to 2 miles to E. This thing's going good, you know? And then this is probably a little more like, how many people your air conditioning unit starts acting up and you're like, oh gosh, it's May. It's going to get 85 today. We got to call the air people. And then you're like, ooh, the first thing they're going to check is that air filter. Let's go see how long it's been since we've changed the air filter. So I'm like, I just changed it. That's crazy. So yeah, I think it's important that we note this is preventative maintenance. Perhaps you won't run out of gas, and perhaps your air conditioning unit won't be acting up if you do the preventative things.
Yeah. And if we're honest, when we think of preventative maintenance, we often think of like material items. We think of those things that have all the moving parts that we want to keep working properly, because when it stops, man, it's hard on us, and it's often expensive to fix it. But Jesus has something to say about this when it pertains to our lives. In Matthew 7:24-27, it says, anyone who listens to my teachings and follows it is wise, like a person who builds a house on solid rock. Though the rain comes in torrents and the floodwaters rise and the winds beat against the house, it won't collapse because it is built on bedrock. But anyone who hears my teaching and doesn't obey is foolish, like a person who built a house on sand. When the rains and the floods come and the winds beat against the house, it will collapse with a mighty crash. So what he's saying here is, hey, there are things that you can put in place today and that will help tomorrow. There are things that you can put now, because the thing is the storms are going to come, right? He's telling you, hey, it's going to come. But if you'll do these things now, these things that I'm telling you that are good for you, hey, when they do come, you'll be able to withstand it. Now today, because they set me up here with my supervisor, so we're kind of talking to like a special group of people today, but the information is good for everyone. Hey, married people, did you know that there's preventative maintenance that you're supposed to be doing in your marriage consistently, that if you do them now, will make later great? So,
I just want to say, when we agreed to do this message together, he did not know what he was getting into.
So here's the thing. So here's what we want to do. Because it's about marriage, and we wanted to give you some really good advice, right? Like, man, I just want to help you out here.
Like straight from the Bible.
Straight from the Bible, right? So this is from the Song of Songs, the Song of Solomon, right? Man, I'm going to tell you right now that if you talk to your spouse this way, you are guaranteed to get a reaction. So I'm not going to say. But, so here's what you do.
I'm going to need you to stand up, please.
Oh, boy, I'm going to stand up.
You got to get in character.
Oh, boy. So, Look at me in my eyes. Straight out of the Bible. Okay?
For real.
How beautiful you are, my darling. How beautiful. Your eyes are like doves.
Like doves. Awesome. My love is strong, like the finest apple tree. He escorts me to the banquet hall. It's obvious how much he loves me. He strengthens me with raisin cakes, refreshes me with apples. I am weak with love. Told you didn't know what he was getting into. I hear my love coming. He is leaping. He is leaping. He is leaping over the mountains, bounding over the hills. My love is like a sweet gazelle or a young stag. Look, here's the really creepy part. Look, there he is behind the wall, looking through the window, peering into the room.
This is where it gets really good. You are beautiful, my darling. Beautiful beyond words.
Yeah.
Your eyes are like doves behind your veil. Your hair falls in waves like a flock of goats.
Straight as a board.
Winding down the slopes of Gilead. Your teeth are as white as sheep, recently shorn and freshly washed. Your smile's flawless. Each tooth matched with its twin.
That's right.
Your lips are like a scarlet ribbon.
Like a scarlet ribbon.
Your mouth is inviting. Your cheeks are like rosy pomegranates behind your veil. Your neck is as beautiful as the Tower of David.
David.
Jeweled with the shields of 1,000 heroes.
Wow.
You are altogether beautiful, my darling. Beautiful in every way.
Thank you. Thanks.
All right, men, women, I'm telling you that if you
Guaranteed.
will just take this example, right? These were poems written between a young woman and her lover, lyrical poems. They are for sure going to get you
For sure.
a reaction.
You young stag. Bounding through the hills.
Whatever, sheep teeth.
Okay, that was not very nice.
So it was good. So who's going to use that on your
good.
spouse?
I would not suggest it. Sheep teeth did not go over well just now. Anyway.
Yeah. All right. Get that out of the way. So, hey, there is preventative maintenance that we are supposed to do in our marriage. What does that look like? What are the things I'm supposed to be planning for now that will help later? What are the things I'm supposed to focus on and watch out, really careful for, that stops that warning light from coming on, that check engine light? Or what am I supposed to do when that check engine light does come on? You see, the relationship between husband and wife is important on many levels. But the one thing that always sticks out to me is what the Word says in Ephesians chapter 5, verses 31 and 32. It says, "A man leaves his father and mother and is joined to his wife, and the two are united in one. This is a great mystery, but it is an illustration of the way Christ and the church are one." So if you miss that, hey, your marriage is supposed to look like Christ and the church. And that's not just a pretty statement. That's supposed to be a world-changing statement. Men, I want you to hear this. You are meant to love your wife to the extent that Christ loved the church. Putting down your life for her, serving her, leading her in the place that God has for her.
Ephesians 5:32 and 33 says, "There's a great mystery, but it's an illustration of the way Christ and the church are one. So again I say, each man must love his wife as he loves himself, and the wife must respect her husband." To me, it was really important just to highlight in this passage, there has been traditionally used incorrectly, in my opinion. You hear the words submit to your husband and respect your husband. And traditionally, sometimes those have been used in an ill or in a toxic way. But I want to reframe that for you this morning. I want to redefine that for you, because if your husband is loving you as Christ does, it's not about control. Christ is gentle. Christ cherishes me. He looks out for me. He is always present. He's always understanding. He doesn't have any kind of ill intent. So please don't miss the beauty of this. To submit to your husband's leadership and to respect your husband's leadership of your home is a beautiful thing when he is submitted to Christ himself. That is the goal. That is the goal.
So what are some practical ways that you do this? Well, we decided we would reach out to some couples in the church, and we posed a question. And the question was, what do you believe the top 2 things you should do as a couple to remain healthy and happy? Anyone think they know the top answer that we got back?
Communication.
Kinda, Mark. He said keep your mouth shut, but it's communication, okay?
It's actually the opposite. Funny.
So, and one of the first things we saw was, hey, don't just talk, listen and take in what is being said. It's important. So oftentimes we're in conversations with our spouse or with anyone for that matter, and they're talking, but we're already coming up with our response in our head. The rebuttal or the answer, the solution, instead of just listening to what they're fully saying. In Proverbs 18:13, it says, if one gives an answer before he hears, it is his folly and shame. So it's important for you to give your undivided attention. While the other person is talking, hey, don't be looking for the answer then. Listen to them fully and then respond.
Yeah, another key important fact of communication is to learn about communication styles. Now, this may be kind of new information for some of you guys, but I feel like we wouldn't do you justice if we didn't talk about this. So there's 3 main communication styles: passive, aggressive, and assertive. And if you're a passive communicator, you're not ever really going to say what you want. In fact, you might be afraid of like conflict, or it sounds a lot like, I'm okay with whatever you want, really. When in fact you actually do have an opinion. You actually want your spouse to know your opinion. You just didn't say anything. So the harm with that is you can grow bitter, you can get frustrated, and all because you didn't say anything, because you're a passive communicator. Now, on the flip side of that is an aggressive communicator. And these are the people that are overtly kind of rude with their communication. And it may sound like, you don't ever help me around the house. It's like you think you don't even live here. I'm responsible for everything. So it's like it's aggressive, and it puts them on the defense, right? So there's no opportunity for them to actually hear what you say because you're just kind of being rude about it. But the happy medium, and this is where a lot of people have trouble, is assertive communication. That's where you say what you want and what you need, but it's kind. So it sounds something like, hey, I'm feeling really overwhelmed right now, and I really need your help around the house. To some people, that may even kind of sound aggressive, like, I need your help. But it's not. You're just saying what you need and how you feel.
One of the next thing is keep lines of communication open. What we're saying is, hey, don't shut the other person out. I will say that for years at the beginning of our marriage, hey, I did this. I didn't open up. There would be things that I would keep to myself, and for multiple reasons. One, I didn't want to burden her. I thought it would be too much for her. And I was really just a really bad communicator. I was a harsh communicator. So I can remember I was taking healthy steps for us to have a good relationship. So I can remember the first time I really ever shared with Sheena, and this is how it went. I sat down and I said, hey, I'm going to share with you what I'm feeling and thinking right now, and this is going to do nothing for me, but I hear it's good for you. So, right? So that's how I did it the first time. But here's what I realized, is it was good for me. It did help me. Hey, the thing that I thought I was keeping from her that would weigh too much on her, hey, keeping it from her, that was the thing that weighed on her. She was there, and she wanted to help me carry whatever it is I was going through. And then, just on the flip side for me, hey, it did help. It did help for me to share that weight with my spouse. Hey, you're supposed to be open and vulnerable with your spouse. Hey, you need to know that when you are holding anything back, and when you close a line of communication, right, when you got married, it said you are one. Hey, you are cutting half of yourself off. So make sure that you keep lines of communication open.
Okay, so another key aspect of communication, preventative maintenance type in marriage, is if there's a miscommunication, fix it quickly. I love that we assign things that we struggled with when we did this message. That's funny. So one standard we have in our home is we do not sweep things under the rug. In the beginning of our marriage, I was pretty afraid of conflict. I didn't really see a lot of it growing up. In fact, my family of origin, we just swept everything under the rug. There's an issue, we don't talk about it. There's anger, we don't talk about it. We just deal with it internally, right? And so Chris's family was exact opposite. If you look at me sideways, we're going to go. Let's get it. And so the first 7 years of our marriage was a real adventure, to say the least. And so, but if we didn't fix it quickly, then that left me very anxious and left him to deal with anger or whatever it was. So when confrontation would come up or a situation would come up, my thought process would be, okay, you know what I can do? I don't have to talk to him about this at all. I can actually just change what I did to cause this, my part, and I actually don't have to mention anything to him. And if I avoid forever and ever what it was that upset us, then we don't ever have to worry about it. We don't have to talk about it, and that'll be that. But the issue is no one is perfect, especially when there's two people in relationship together. Things come up, so you can't actually just sweep it under the rug. If the issue is avoided, then bitterness grows, unforgiveness grows. And so that's just not the way to do it.
That's right. So another big thing is, hey, you need to know that when we talk about communication in a marriage, hey, the one thing that is absolutely important, and we all know as Christians, is prayer. Hey, with your spouse, hey, you're supposed to pray with your spouse. If you are one and Christ is at the center of your marriage, and here's the thing, you need to know that Christ can be at the center of whatever relationship you have. But Christ is absolutely supposed to be at the center of your marriage. So make sure that you are praying together. Also, there's a few things, right? He's like, hey, there are some ways. God says, hey, there are some ways that you communicate. In Colossians 3:19, it says, husbands, love your wives and do not be harsh with them, right? Hey, there are going to be times where tensions are high, and hey, you want to present yourself a certain way, but he's saying, hey, don't be harsh with them. And in Proverbs 12:18, it says, there is one whose rash words are like sword thrust, but the tongue of the wise brings healing. So this is really important is, hey, how do you communicate? When you communicate, especially when tensions are high, are you doing it to cause more damage, or are you doing it to heal what's going on? We often think that when we're in disagreement, it's me versus you, but it's not, right? It's us together working through a thing to find a resolution, to find the right thing.
Yeah, in a lot of marriages, I think, and in relationships, there's two types of people when there's conflict. There's the person who wants to fix it immediately, who cannot sit in the discomfort. Like, we're going to talk about this right now. I don't know what's wrong, but we got to fix it right now. And then there's the person that wants to walk away and avoid it and just, we'll talk about it at some other time. So what happens here is the anxious person, me, in the relationship, if we've had conflict in the past, I would just say whatever it took to get him to talk about it, because sitting in that anxiety was too much for me. Like, we got to get resolved. This can't be, remember, not great with conflict. So let's get this over with as soon as we can. And he is the type that needs to process. Also, I'm extroverted. I process everything externally. He's introverted, so he needs a minute to take it in, process his emotions, think about it. I don't understand all that world. I just talk about it out loud. But he needs a second, because whenever I push him, it makes him want to run away. And whenever he runs away, it makes me feel like, wow, okay, so we're just not even going to handle this. That's fine. And it's not. So it's really important to give each other space, right? One rule we have is that if we're in a disagreement and I'm frustrated, I'm the first to get ghetto. I will admit it. He stays calm. I get ghetto. It's just what it is. And I will feel the emotions rise up in me, and I'll want to talk about it. And he'll say, in his little calm demeanor, hey, emotions are high right now. And I'm like, mm-hmm. And he's like, let's take 15 minutes. And I'm like, okay, let's take 15 minutes. We'll come back. We'll talk about it. Well, what I have learned after years of fighting this is, you know what, there's actually a lot of wisdom in that. If we will just go take 15 minutes, chill out, I get myself in check, then I can actually talk about what it was that bothered me without being all about it, you know?
I'll go get my sweet treat.
Go chill, swing on the porch or something, I don't know.
But when it comes to communication, there are some practical things you can do as far as preventative maintenance-wise. One of the things that we did years and years ago is we set standards of communication. The things that we put in place now will affect the way that we communicate later. So some of the standards we put in place is, number one, hey, I don't get to raise my voice at you. I don't get to say the thing that cuts the deepest. Remember, when you argue with your spouse, it's not you versus them. You're actually trying to get somewhere, right? But sometimes we miss it, right? We're like, oh, we're in an argument, I'm winning, right? 100%. So, hey, you don't get to say the thing that cuts deepest. And we've already talked about this one. You don't get to sweep anything under the rug. You don't get to storm out. Hey, you need to know that, hey, that communicates something too. It's different when you've communicated, hey, we're going to take a minute, and we're going to, take our own for a minute and go to another area and calm down. But when you storm out, it communicates something all on its own. Our other one is, don't bring up past things that have nothing to do with the present thing. Now, for us, it's great to have these standards, but these standards only really work if you have accountability to them. So at any point in time, if either one of us say, hey, man, you're violating the standards that we set forth, hey, we're really good to adjust. But you need to know that whatever standards you set for communication in your marriage, and you should, you also have to be held accountable, or therefore not.
Yeah. Man, that was a lot about communication. It's like it's really important.
Really important.
Okay, number 2 on preventative maintenance is to pursue your spouse. I know that how many of us would say we kind of live busy lives? It's just part of our culture, right? We run ourselves ragged. Could be work, could be kids, could be grandkids, could be volunteering. It could be lots of things. But when we get in that zone, it's really easy just to coexist with your spouse and just kind of have this partnership of you do this, I'll do this, and at the end of the day, we'll go to bed in the same bed, we'll sleep great, we'll wake up, we'll do it all again tomorrow. We'll just do what we have to do to keep this thing afloat. And actually, in the meantime, you stay so busy that you're missing the main thing, and that's to pursue your spouse. So the first thing with pursuing your spouse is to be intentional, right? Intentionality takes attention. It takes time. It's noticing what your partner may need, what they may need, what they are going through. It's literally just being observant of your spouse. What is it that they need? How can I help them? How can I ease their, honestly, just sometimes noticing a nonverbal thing that he's doing. I'm like, are you okay? I
got some faces.
He does. Have you had a hard day? What's going on? It's just about being intentional. Now the next part, I'm gonna stand up. Got to get my teaching zone. We're gonna talk about love languages just real quickly. I don't know if you guys have heard of love languages before, but if you haven't, let me just give you a quick 1-minute kind of tutorial. Thank you, you young stag. Okay, so basically there are 5 different love languages. There's words of affirmation, physical touch, receiving gifts, quality time, and acts of service. And this is all about how you receive love. So if you are words of affirmation, you like it when people talk about how they appreciate you, how important you are. Physical touch, it's nonverbal use of body language to show touch and love. Receiving gifts, you love to give gifts, you love to receive gifts. Oh, you thought of me, that's so sweet, thank you so much. Quality time is uninterrupted and focused time together. And then acts of service is letting them know you are wanting to help and lighten their load. So for Chris, he is, you can come back over, he is physical touch. And I am acts of service. So I focus on my to-do list. I got to get all these things done. And if he really wants to show me that he loves me, he doesn't need to rub my back. I'm not physical touch. He needs to be like, girl, those dishes, that is on your list, isn't it? Let me jump over there and do those dishes real quick. And I'll be like, oh, my God, look at my man. He did those dishes. He loves me.
I put on some Marvin Gaye over there scrubbing some plates.
He lying. He is lying through his teeth. Through his sheep teeth. No, I'm just kidding. I'm sorry. I turn into comedian sometimes with a microphone. Anyway, but what... refocus. Whew. But really, in reality, if he takes note of what is stressing me and he alleviates that stress, I feel loved. Now, for him, I don't know. We had been married probably 5 years. I knew nothing of love languages. I should have. In fact, on our wedding, someone got us the book, 5 Languages of Love, but it just went up on a bookshelf, and I never even looked at it. Anyway, so for his birthday, he was active duty military, and he worked really long days, and so I thought, oh, man, this house is going to be spotless. It's going to smell good. It's going to look good. I'm going to have his favorite chicken pot pie going in the oven. He's going to come in. He's going to have football or something on TV that he wants to watch. We're going to have his recliner kicked back just right, like setting the zone, right? Like really serving through acts of service all the ways. And I remember he was like, thanks. And he ate his food. He's like, this is good, thank you. And I was just like, really? And then about 6 months later, we go to this marriage conference, and they talk about the 5 languages of love. And I sat in there and thought, I could have given him a 5-minute back rub, and it would have meant more to him than the 2 hours I spent preparing our home. And he was like, yeah. And I was like, oh, so now every now and then I'll just be like, I love you, you know? So I just realized how important this really is and how much of a difference it really does make, for sure.
So one of the next things, speaking of physical touch, is physical intimacy, right? Hey, this was the next thing on the list, and this is really, really important. In fact, hey, God's like, it's not just one of those things turns away. He condones it. He thinks it's good. Actually, when we're created in chapter 1, it's the first thing he tells us to do, right? He's like, go and populate the earth. Go brown chicken, brown cow. You know what I'm saying? Like, he lets us know. But honestly, so intimacy is mostly not physical. It is the things that we've already talked about, the communication and just pursuing your spouse. Those are the things of intimacy in your relationship. But then God created physical intimacy. He said, you don't understand. He goes, this is like taking it to a new level, right? You're going to connect with them in all these ways, and then you're going to connect with them physically, right? That's why there's pleasure involved, because it's meant to be with your spouse. And so he said, and this whole picture is what I have for you, right? This brings the whole picture together. So physical intimacy, it is a big thing in your relationship. It's just kind of that icing on the cake.
Yep. Don't really know where to go from there. So another important aspect of pursuing your spouse is to cheer one another on. Okay, give your little spiel. Remember we practiced?
Yeah, I
and
do.
Go.
Thanks. So for me, cheering each other on, the one thing I've always wanted is in the 20-something years that me and Sheena have been together, I don't know that I've really ever told her no for anything. Because my thing is I never wanted her to want to pursue something and achieve something and do it in spite of me. I always wanted her to do it with me supporting her and having her back and pushing her when she needed it and being there for her when she needed me to be. So just really cheering her on throughout the whole process.
And he did that. I don't know, the last 4 years have been a journey for me to become a mental health therapist. And at the beginning, this looked like me saying, because I had really been like a stay-at-home mom pretty much. And I was like, I don't know, this is really going to put a heavy load on our home, Chris. Like, I'll be gone 2 nights a week. And he's like, and we're going to handle it. It's going to be fun. Well, our kids are going to miss me, and they're not going to know what to do, and they're going to be fine. Sheena, we have a great support system, and I'll be here. So a lot of times it was me bouncing these fears. And he was like, no, we got it. We got it. So 3 years later, here we are, and we made it. But I wouldn't have been able to make it. I fully believe that without his support cheering me on.
And all the kids made it too.
And all the kids survived.
So this pursuing your spouse, right? The word tells us in Genesis 2:24, therefore shall a man leave his father and his mother and shall cleave unto his wife. They shall be one flesh. The word cleave means to stay very close to. And you need to know that this is a very intentional thing, especially in a world that's designed to pull you in 1,000 different directions. But for a couple to remain close, it takes intentionality, right? It takes pursuing them, that no matter what the world throws at you, you continue to grow closer. So the preventative maintenance part is simple in theory, right? Mark your calendars, but make sure you have time reserved for each other. Time to connect and share with each other. Not to do the 100 things on the to-do list, or not to get together and just complete parenting tasks, but true time being vulnerable and open with each other, having fun, praying for each other. So there's this word that kind of sums everything up. So the Hebrew word that is used to describe the love between a husband and a wife is ahava, which just means I give. And it's used 45 times in the Old Testament and nearly twice as many in the New Testament. So ahava, I give. And the common phrase back then was, I give, therefore I love. This term is also used a lot in the Old Testament to describe God's love for us. It had nothing to do with what we could give him or do for him. It was simply because of who he was, he gave to us. Preventative maintenance is a systematic approach of looking at something and what it will need and fulfilling that need. So it is this definition of love and preventative maintenance in a marriage, ahava, the type of love that sees what the need or what needs to be done and does it, recognizes the gap and fills it, sees the need and gives to it. It's this type of love that is selfless. It gets me out of the way so that I can love you, and the only thing I get in return is knowing that you're loved completely. Imagine a marriage that's not this transactional thing of I give to you and I expect this in return, but imagine a marriage to where each person looks at the other person and sees what they need, and they ask this question, hey, how is it that I love this person the best way right now for what they need, and I give to them? Here's what, no one would be lacking in the relationship. Right? This transactional thing is not the love that God had described. So it's not I give and take, it's just I give. And when both people do it, it's something wonderful. So the one thing I want you to look at, as you leave here today, when it's talking about communication and pursuing your spouse and communicating love in their love language, I want you to ask, hey, how is it that I can love them exactly the way they need to be loved right now? And then give. Put it into motion. Because all in all, when we talk about preventative maintenance, it's this type of love, this I give to you type of love that is preventative maintenance in relationships. If we are supposed to be the picture of Christ in the church, hey, Christ gave, and he gave all. He laid everything down for us. So, when you leave here and you go home and you're looking at your spouse, right, or maybe there's a future spouse, and maybe there's the people out there who's like, I ain't never getting married again, or I ain't getting married at all. Like, I just did a wedding yesterday. And then with two people who said they'd never get married again. So don't count it out. But here's what I want you to ask while you're looking at yourself. Hey, how is it I can love them? Hey, what do they need right now? And by fulfilling that, you are doing preventative maintenance in your marriage.
Okay. I would like for everyone just to bow their heads. We're going to pray. Father God, I just thank you so much for this opportunity to speak today, God. God, I'm humble at the position, Father God, that you've given me a microphone and I get to spread your word. God, I just pray that every person in this room would take something from this message and apply it to their lives. God, I pray that marriages would be strengthened. I pray that communication, regardless of the relationship, would be improved. Father God, I pray that people would feel safe within their relationships. And God, I pray that people would experience healing in relationships. And God, I just pray that you would just continue to be with us. God, I thank you for everything you're doing. I pray that you would just continue to bless and to move. And God, I just pray that as we close service today, God, that you would leave with us. God, just empower us to be your hands and feet. In your name I pray. Amen.
Y'all have a great day.